Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Cecilia, and on behalf of East Markets, we're very pleased you've joined us for our next live presentation from InMed Pharmaceuticals. Before I introduce our speaker, a few points to note. Please submit your questions in the question box to the left of the slides. If you're interested in scheduling a meeting with InMed Pharmaceuticals, please click on the Meetings tab found on the left navigation bar. You will be able to view the company's availability and submit a meeting request. On a final note, all today's presentations will be recorded and available for 24/7 replay. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Eric Adams, President and CEO of InMed Pharmaceuticals, which trades on the NASDAQ under the symbol INM. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you. Glad to be here. I'd like to give a short overview of the company, and then afterwards I will be accepting questions. It's important as a NASDAQ traded company that everyone take a moment to look at the forward-looking statements. As a public company, it's important to review this, and we will be using forward-looking statements in today's presentation. So who is InMed? We are one of the few pure-play rare cannabinoid companies out there today. We have expertise across a wide range of scientific approaches, both for the pharmaceutical development of compounds, the basic research into developing novel analogs, and also to the manufacturing of rare cannabinoids, which is an important part of our portfolio. We'll start taking a look at the cannabinoid drug development programs. Currently, we have a number of different programs looking at some diseases that we think can be impacted by the use of cannabinoid-based pharmaceutical products. Our lead compound is INM 755, which is a cream that is used in a rare genetic skin disorder called epidermolysis bullosa, or EB. That one is currently in phase 2 clinical testing. Second compound that we have is INM-088, which is also based on the cannabinoid CBN, and this is being developed as an eye drop for glaucoma and other ocular diseases. We have a recently announced program that we call the INM 900 series program, looking at neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. That's in early preclinical research. And then we have a number of other programs where we're developing specific cannabinoid analogs in order to address diseases with high unmet medical needs. I'll start out talking about EB for a little bit. It's a very debilitating and rare connective tissue disorder. There's currently no cures or approved treatments. A lot of the treatments that are out there today offer symptom relief. What we're looking to do with INM 755 is to address the symptomology of the disease and looking at different outcomes related to inflammation and pain, as well as chronic healing or healing of chronic wounds and relieving itch in these patients. We think that there may be an opportunity to see some disease modification, but currently the clinical trials are not designed to measure that. And as I mentioned, this is a topical cream made out of cannabinol, or CBN. We are currently in the final phases of enrollment and patient treatment in our initial phase 2 clinical program, and we're expecting a data readout sometime in the July or August timeframe. The primary endpoint for this is the symptoms that I had mentioned, and these patients are treated over a 28-day period. So we're currently looking to enroll 20 patients. I think we're around 18 right now. So a little update from what's presented on this slide. And it's a very interesting design in the clinical trial in that we're looking at patients who have similar wounds, so 2 wounds on similar body parts that serve as their own control. So one wound would receive, or one area I should say, would receive the active ingredient in the cream, and the other site would receive the cream alone. And that serves as a very robust way to look at the potential impact on these disease symptoms within the same patient. Our next program is in glaucoma, and that's the leading cause of blindness for people over the age of 60. We think there's a very high unmet medical need there, and what we're looking to do is deliver CBN as an eye drop to treat this disease. There's a couple of problems in glaucoma that we're looking to solve. The first one is that the intraocular pressure is caused by a buildup of the aqueous humor fluid at the front of the eye. So most of the treatments out there today and other cannabinoids, including CBN, have the ability to help drain this fluid, which relieves the pressure on the inside of the eye. The pressure itself is really the problem because it causes damage to the retinal nerve cells at the back of the eye. This, of course, causes the irreversible blindness over a period of time. So, what we found that is interesting about CBN is that not only does it help reduce the aqueous fluid at the front of the eye, but it proactively goes to the back of the eye and protects these neurons from damage and from death. So, it's kind of a dual action that we're looking for in this disease. I mentioned we now have a formal program in neurodegenerative diseases as well. And what we're looking to do is see what the role of cannabinoids could be in diseases such as Alzheimer's. There's been a lot of research in Alzheimer's looking at removing these beta amyloid plaques that essentially clog up the communication of the neurons with each other, causing the outcomes of this disease. But with all the money that's been invested and all the research that's been done, they've been able to remove the beta amyloid plaques, but that's not correlated well with improvement in patient outcomes. So there's still a very high unmet medical need, something that we are investigating now. What we're doing is looking at cannabinoid analogs in this program, where you take the natural compound that occurs in nature and you modify it in a way to increase its efficacy or its safety or its deliverability to different body parts. The reason we think this is a very interesting application for cannabinoids is we know that cannabinoids can get to the brain, something that not all drugs can do. So crossing from the blood into the brain is, pretty unusual in a lot of drugs, but for cannabinoids, it's actually something they do quite well. Once it gets to the brain, there's a number of different receptors that can be activated or impacted on by the cannabinoids. And so we're looking to better understand what the potential role here may be. One of the things that we did see is the potential to enhance neuronal function through the use of these cannabinoid analogs. What we've seen is that applying specific cannabinoids can actually increase the length of the neurons. So you can imagine in a disease where the neurons start to pull apart from each other, they can't communicate as well. And what we've seen with the application of our target cannabinoid is that these neuronal cells start to extend themselves again, and we believe that may lead to better communication between neurons. So we'll jump in for a moment and talk a little bit about the rare cannabinoid manufacturing. There's a number of different approaches that you can use in the pharmaceutical world to manufacture your end compound. Typical approaches are biosynthesis and chemical synthesis. And we've developed a third part that is kind of an integration between those two that we call integrison. Biosynthesis is usually done in a host, something like yeast or bacteria, where you genetically reprogram them to make the target compound. This is used quite extensively in the pharmaceutical industry, and as an example, all of the insulin in the world today is made by a biosynthetic process. Chemical synthesis is a more straightforward approach, just simply using the chemical building blocks needed to arrive at the end structure. Now, these have pros and cons, both of them, and it depends on really what the final structure, your final compound is that you're trying to make in terms of which one might make more sense and at which scale you're trying to make it. As I mentioned, we developed an approach called integrison that we think utilizes the best of both of these worlds. So we start with a biosynthetic approach, and then we use chemical synthesis to arrive at the final compound. So this is something that we have very extensive knowledge about, and I think we're one of the leaders in cannabinoid synthesis. what we try to do is, make a product that is at a very high consistency, very high purity, a very cost-effective way of manufacturing these. Through our acquisition of a company called Bay Medica about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago now, I guess, we acquired a significant amount of know-how that augmented the know-how that InMed already had, and I think we're really one of the leaders in this area. Because we had this expertise in manufacturing these cannabinoids, we thought that it might be beneficial to utilize that know-how and start to produce rare cannabinoids for the health and wellness sector. The difference between the health and wellness sector and the pharmaceutical sector has to do with the manufacturing process and kind of the purity at which you manufacture these. So they're both very high, but there are slight differences that make the pharmaceutical approach more expensive. Nevertheless, we've been able to apply our know-how, and we've launched a number of different rare cannabinoids. And you can see here that includes THCV, CBDV, CBT, and CBC. All of these are non-psychoactive cannabinoids, and they're used extensively in the health and wellness space for a number of different applications. Just to give you a brief corporate overview, from a patent standpoint, we have a very diverse patent portfolio. We have classified this into three separate categories. The first one is new chemical entities, or NCEs. This has to do with the underlying structure of the compound, and we have a couple of patent families already filed and 21 international pending patents for the structure of these analogs that we're developing. Very strong in the manufacturing IP. We have 2 granted and over 29 international pending patents that fall into 7 different patent families. And we also have the method of use. So, for instance, with the EB product, the underlying cannabinoid that we're using, CBN, we can't hold a patent on it because it's a naturally occurring compound. However, we can and we have filed for the method of use. So we're very strong in the patent from a patent perspective, and it's something that we continue to build aggressively. Just a financial snapshot of the company. As of December 31st, we had 11.5 million in cash in the bank. That gives us about a 1-year runway, depending on how we invest in the various programs. But we're comfortable that gives us a 1-year runway, potentially more. We have 3.3 million shares outstanding, fully diluted basis, 6.9 million. And as with just about every other company, particularly in the biotech space, it's been a very up and down year in terms of share price. So it's a very upside down world right now, but we continue to march forward and build value in our different programs. In terms of the pedigree of the people involved in the company, at the top line here, you can see the individuals on the InMed side. We have a very rich history in pharmaceutical drug development and clinical trial expertise, as well as regulatory expertise. On the bottom line here is the group of individuals from Bay Medica who joined us when we acquired the company. Again, they also have an extensive know-how in drug development, but are more focused on the manufacturing side of the equation, along with Jerry Griffin, who's our VP of Sales and Marketing for the health and wellness space. So combined, we have a very strong team. I think in total we're about 15 individuals, and we have all of the requisite know-how to build the company in the direction that we're trying to build it. So looking forward into 2023, we're now coming to the end of the first calendar quarter. Our goals are to complete the phase 2 clinical trial. We'll complete enrollment by the end of this month. We'll then have the data readout, as I mentioned, sometime in the July or August timeframe. We're going to continue to advance our glaucoma program towards human clinical trials. Those would be slated for 2024. We're going to continue to study the neurodegenerative disease space and find which analogs we think are going to be most promising there. We're going to continue to build the library of cannabinoid analogs. Our patent portfolio covers several hundred different compounds, and so now we have to take a look at which one of those we think are going to hold the most promise in terms of drug development. And we're going to continue to build a significant patent portfolio. And it's also important that we keep our eyes and ears open to potential strategic opportunities and partnerships that we think can help advance the company. So with that, I'd like to thank you for listening in. If you want to reach out to the company, here's the person to contact, Colin Clancy, our VP of Investor Relations. We're now going to take some initial some questions here, and give me a second to open up that window so I can read this. All right. So first question is, do we have any research partners? We have several research partners. In particular, we do a lot of our fundamental research with the leading universities in the world. So depending on what approach we're taking or what disease we're investigating, we go out and actively trying to find the leading, the thought leaders in the field and the people who have the strongest track record in investigating pharmaceutical applications, and we tend to partner with them. We do not currently have any partnerships with major pharmaceutical companies or anything like that. That's something that's under investigation. The second question is, how does CBN differ from CBD as it relates to drug development? That's a very good question. So CBD is one of what's recognized as the major cannabinoids. CBD, THC, and probably CBG are the major cannabinoids, and we're looking, as you know, at the rare cannabinoids, which are all the others. There's several hundred or over 100 rare cannabinoids that occur in very low concentration in the plant. One of the challenges that presents is that we have to investigate how to manufacture those. For the CBD and THC, things like that, you can extract that from the plant quite readily, and the economics are pretty good to pursue that approach. So how do they differ in terms of drug development? They don't really differ much at all. CBD was developed by GW Pharma, now Jazz Pharma. They had to go through all of the same regulatory pathways that we will, which is the same for any pharmaceutical drug that you're trying to develop. They had the advantage that it was much easier to access CBD. I believe GW Pharma actually had their own growing operation, and they could extract their product directly from that. We don't have that ability. We have to work with different companies to figure out how best to manufacture it, and then to have it manufactured on our behalf. We don't actually have a manufacturing facility at large scale. But other than that, they're very similar. I think the development of CBD has been important because it helped pave the road for the rest of us in terms of understanding what the moving parts are and building relationships with the FDA. And in the U.S., you have to have a relationship with the DEA because these fall under they're as a scheduled compound until you actually find a use for it, and then you can have these rescheduled or completely descheduled. But overall, I think if you look at a very 10,000-foot picture, it's a very similar drug development path. Next question. Alzheimer's is such a difficult indication. Why do you think InMed is doing something different? Well, we certainly don't think we're smarter than all the other big pharmaceutical companies in the space, but they've all focused on one approach, and that is to try to get rid of these beta amyloid plaques in the neural network that may be hindering the ability of the neurons to communicate with each other. And they've been successful in doing that, but the outcome has not been what everyone had anticipated. They were hoping that it would improve cognitive function by getting rid of these plaques. But the effects have been very minor, which has been a real head scratcher. So I think that's an important component of finding a good outcome in this disease or diseases related to that. But I don't think it's the one answer. I think it's going to take a multiple approach to be able to get the outcomes that everyone is seeking. One of the interesting things about the cannabinoid analog that we've taken a look at, we've looked at several, but one in particular, is that it seems to impact a number of different outcomes that you would want to target. So as I mentioned, the regrowth of these neurons and them extending their arms, if you will, to be closer to each other, we think that could have a significant impact. The cannabinoid that we are targeting also can remove beta amyloid plaques. Now, I don't know to what degree, if it's the same as the drugs that have been developed specifically for that, but it does have an impact there. And it has a few other impacts that I think are going to be important, as we learn more and better understand the potential role of our compound in treating this disease. Okay. Next question is, will you be able to monetize your patent portfolio? Well, we have already in some ways. If you take a look at the manufacturing of the rare cannabinoids for the health and wellness space, some of that is based on our technological know-how in how to manufacture these at large scale. So from that perspective, we do have a small but growing revenue stream in that space, and that of course supports the overall advancement of the company. I think, as we start to get more human data for these different indications, including EB, we then have the foundation to go out and talk more with other companies about, the importance of these compounds and where they might play an important role in treating different diseases. So we are inherently building value by investing in these clinical trials, and either we can choose to move forward ourselves, or we can choose to partner as we advance. And again, that's all going to be data dependent. If the data is strong, then you increase your likelihood of being able to monetize these programs. If it's not that strong, then you have to hit reset and maybe pursue something different. In terms of the manufacturing, we have had discussions over the years with people who are interested in certain aspects of our patent portfolio and how to manufacture these compounds. We've not yet finalized any kind of relationship that would monetize that, but those kinds of things are ongoing. Okay, next question is, once the EB program completes, what are the different strategic options available to the company? Yeah, so I just touched on that a little bit. We anticipate having a data readout for the EB program over the course of the summer. That will give us an indication as to which of the targeted symptoms really should be the ones that we pursue in additional clinical trials. So that includes the pain, itch, inflammation, and wound healing. Now, we may have an impact on all four of those, but one or two of those may rise to the top in terms of the best outcomes or the most impactful outcomes. And as you then look towards a phase 3 clinical program, you would want to focus on the ones where you think you have the highest impact. But our options, once we have that data readout, is to consider moving into phase 3 clinical trials ourselves, or to potentially partner that with someone else, or to even divest it. But certainly all of those options remain on the table for us. Okay, the next question. Sorry, have a little. It says, it's crazy you are currently trading well below cash like many other biotech companies. When do you see this market turning around? Well, I'd like for it to turn around today and continue on an upward path, but certainly it's been very rough times. It's a real bloodbath in the capital markets right now. I mean, you can see, on a weekly basis, the number of companies who are filing for bankruptcy or being delisted from the NASDAQ because they no longer meet the criteria. Some companies who are hoping to pursue an IPO have pulled their filing and are not going to pursue that. So it's a very difficult time right now. I think, luckily we were able to raise 17 million in the last half of last year, and that positions us very well to kind of ride out this storm and get through to the other side. So it's a crazy time. I have several biotech companies in my portfolio, including InMed, and I think we're well positioned to hit the milestones that we are anticipating, get through these really rough waters, and get through to the other side. So sorry, I don't have a crystal ball here to predict when the whole thing's going to turn around, but we're very hopeful that things turn around quickly. Okay. Don't see many other questions coming through. I'll give it just another second here. Okay, let me see here. Can you point to other success stories in cannabinoid research? Are there many other companies focused in the area? Well, the big success has been the development by GW Pharma of Epidiolex, which is a CBD oil that is used in treating patients with a severe form of epilepsy. So what they saw is, this is a group of individuals who have, up to several hundred seizures per day. So it's really the worst of the worst patients in from that perspective. And after being treated with CBD oil, they can essentially, decrease the number of episodes almost to zero, and zero in many cases. So it's just been a godsend for those patients. Um, that's been the biggest one, and that product, was selling probably in the 800 million to $1 billion per year when the company was acquired by Jazz Pharmaceuticals. In terms of other companies out there, there's at least one other one that's looking at glaucoma. There's a couple other ones that are looking at potential applications in neurodegenerative diseases. And there's several that are looking at delivering CBD as a therapeutic compound in a number of different ways. So as a skin patch, nasal sprays, things like that. I think we're the only company that has the ability to not only do the fundamental research, move products through to clinical testing, but also has the manufacturing expertise to figure out how to make these things. And you can't really underestimate the importance of that. It's a very core component of any drug development company to be able to make these things at large scale and in an economic fashion. And again, I think that's something that we really excel at. So there's a number of different companies out there. There's one glaring success story, and I think we're very well positioned within this field. All right. Well, that looks to be the end of the questions. So I want to thank everyone for participating today, and appreciate you spending some time with us. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out to Colin Clancy, who's our Vice President of Investor Relations. Thank you so much.